One of the most requested topics we get here at Ag PhD is from farmers. They say, can you talk to non-farmers about all our costs to farm? And from non-farmers, they also ask about this just in a little bit different way, but everybody's just kind of curious, what are things like on the farm? Because you may have heard that times are kind of tough, and yes, they are. So we're going to explain that today. So what we've got, both Darren and I have this sheet of paper that we used a year and a half ago to do this same topic here at Ag PhD. It was, what are our costs to farm? And basically, I'll just give you the very quick summary. This is for our region where we farm. We farm in southeast South Dakota. And in our area, it's very common for soybean yields to be about 40, 45, and corn yields to be about 160, 170. Well, we even figured, like on our farm, and this would be a little low for us, but still, we figured 200 bushel corn, and we figured 60 bushel soybeans. And a year and a half ago, we figured, okay, if we pay $200 cash rent, we will make no money. And that's a sobering fact when you go, boy, I'm going to get 25% or at least 15% higher than county average yields, and I'm still going to make nothing? What?
Well, that's scary. And so if you're a farmer going into that situation, you're like, wow, how can I cut my costs? Because I still need that yield, but I got to find the costs that just, you know, it's probably not making me very much money. I think I can give up that $10 expense and lose less than $10 worth of income. So this is going to turn out net positive for me.
Or how do we increase our yields? So like I was saying, on our farm, we're fortunate. We're averaging much more for corn and much more for soybeans than this 200 and the 60. So what can we do to either bump yields or cut costs? But just to run through this a little bit, we figured $200 cash rent. Okay, so if you look at, for corn, we figured $3 corn, and granted, today's corn price is higher than that. But $3 corn times 200 bushels, that was $600 income. We figured $200 cash rent. So 1/3 of that was going just to cash rent. And that's by far and away the number one expense. And so when you ask any farmer who's renting ground, well, what could I cut? Well, it's really hard to cut seed and to cut weed control and to cut equipment, to cut labor. Where are we going to make the cuts? I mean, obviously, the farmer who is renting ground is going to say, well, boy, it would sure be nice if the landlord would reduce the rent a little bit. And we absolutely have seen rents come down over the last 5 years because it just has not been feasible to continue to fertilize the ground for the long term and still make some money.
Well, when you talk about that fertilizer, this is one where we see some big cuts, and we see growers saying, you know what, there's some in my soil, maybe I can just mine that soil out. I know I'm going to leave that soil in a lower fertility position going into the following year, but for this year, just to keep my head above water, that's about my only choice.
So just as an example, we put down $63 for soybean fertility. Okay, well, the average farmer around us only spends $5 to $15 in fertility. Now they're removing, you know, $40 to $60 worth of fertility, but they're not putting it back. And that's my whole point here. So if you're a landlord, this is one of the things you've got to take into account. Would I rather have more cash, and when I have more cash, then the farmer's going to deplete my soil for fertility, or would I rather reduce my rent and make sure those dollars end up going toward fertilizer? Either way, that's up to you.
So you mentioned land rent, you mentioned fertility, and then you had said you can't really cut the seed expense. You do need to put seed out there to raise a crop, but you could go away from traits. That's just going to add more to your management.
Okay, when you say it's going to increase your management if you cut back on the seed traits, not only that, but now you're going to have more cost because Roundup is way cheaper than a conventional herbicide, for example. Insecticide is going to, like corn insecticide is 15, 20 bucks an acre if I cut the trait. So you got to weigh those things out. Is it really going to be worth it? Is it really going to save you a whole bunch of money? Well, yes, you can make cuts, but are you sacrificing yield in the meantime if you don't put insecticide out, if you don't use a good herbicide, if you don't use a fungicide? I mean, there are a lot of these things that farmers have to work their way through. So just real quickly, the top expenses that we listed for corn, seed, we put $88, fertilizer, $69, equipment, $75. Those are the big ones there. On the soybean side, we had seed only at $50 and then fertilizer at $63, equipment at $65. So those are the big costs. Well, how are you going to cut those? It gets really difficult. So again, just the main thing we wanted to talk to you about today is just that times are challenging right now on the farm, especially for those who are renting ground. Times aren't bad for a farmer who's owned his ground for years and years and the ground's all paid off. Well, if you have no debt, then sure, things are great. But if you're a young farmer and you've got payments to make on equipment, you have payments to make on land or you're renting land, times are really challenging right now. So we're certainly hoping for the best as we move forward, and that's why we're here, is to hopefully give you some good ideas on how do you increase yield and do that cost effectively.
Well, one thing that can add to the economic challenge on farms is our weed of the week. Can you identify this week's weed?